I never expected my graduation day to be the day I lost my family. Standing in the driveway of our suburban home, still wearing my graduation gown, I watched my father throw my hastily packed suitcase onto the concrete. "Get out!" he roared, his face red with fury. "You're a failure, a complete disappointment." My mother stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her expression cold and distant. She didn't say a word as my father continued his tirade. Behind them, my brother Marcus smirked, already the golden child, now the only child worth mentioning. What had triggered this explosion? My decision to decline the position at my father's company, Morgan Industries, a position he'd been planning for me since before I could walk. "Dad, please, I tried one last time. The startup has incredible potential. The technology could revolutionize." "Enough," he cut me off. "You think some tiny tech startup is better than the company I built from nothing, the company that paid for your education." I clutched my business degree to my chest, the degree I'd earned with a 4.0 GPA, the one that was supposed to make them proud. "I want to build something of my own, not just inherit your legacy." My mother finally spoke, her voice ice cold. "Then do it without our support, Olivia. You chose this." The garage door rumbled closed behind them, a final barrier between me and everything I'd ever known. I stood there, tears streaming down my face, still wearing the cap and gown I proudly donned just hours earlier. I had $2,473 in my bank account, a suitcase full of hastily packed clothes, and nowhere to go. 10 years later, I still remember that day with perfect clarity. Not because it broke me, but because it made me. That evening, as I sat in a cheap motel room, I made a promise to myself. I would build something greater than Morgan Industries could ever be. The startup that had offered me a position was called Nova Technologies. They were developing revolutionary AI-driven software for business analytics. My father had dismissed them as insignificant, but I saw their potential. I called the CEO that night. "Mr. Chen, is that junior analyst position still available?" "Of course, Olivia. When can you start?" "Tomorrow." I worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week. While my family probably imagined me struggling and regretting my decision, I was thriving. Nova's technology was groundbreaking, and I understood its potential better than anyone. Within 6 months, I was leading my own team. By the end of the first year, I had developed a client acquisition strategy that tripled our revenue. The CEO noticed. "Olivia," he called me into his office one day. "How would you feel about becoming our Director of Strategic Development?" I accepted immediately. The promotion came with stock options that would prove invaluable when Nova went public 2 years later. My initial shares were worth $2.1 million after the IPO. But I wasn't satisfied. I had learned everything I could about business analytics, artificial intelligence, and corporate strategy. More importantly, I had built a network of contacts throughout the industry. It was time for the next step. I founded Phoenix Analytics when I was 26, 4 years after being thrown out of my parents' house. The name was deliberate, rising from the ashes of my old life. We specialize in corporate turnarounds and strategic acquisitions, using AI technology far more advanced than anything Morgan Industries had access to. My first major client was a mid-sized tech company on the verge of bankruptcy. Using our proprietary analytics software, we identified inefficiencies, restructured their operations, and turned them profitable within 8 months. Word spread quickly. By year 3, Phoenix Analytics had offices in New York, London, and Singapore. Our client list included Fortune 500 companies, and our success rate was unprecedented. I had built something revolutionary, exactly as I promised myself that night in the motel. I never reached out to my family during this time, and they never tried to contact me. Through industry connections, I heard occasional updates about Morgan Industries. They were struggling to adapt to the changing business landscape, losing market share to more technologically advanced competitors. Then last month, my assistant brought me a familiar name. Morgan Industries had posted its worst quarterly results in 30 years. Their stock was plummeting and rumors of bankruptcy were swirling. I sat in my corner office on the 50th floor of the Phoenix Analytics building, looking out over the city skyline. On my desk lay a detailed analysis of Morgan Industries, every weakness, every failing, every opportunity for takeover. My father had always prided himself on building his company from nothing. Now I had built something bigger, something better. and I was about to show him exactly what his failure of a daughter had achieved. I picked up my phone. Sarah, prepare the takeover documents for Morgan Industries, and make sure my signature is clearly visible at the bottom. 10 years after being thrown out with nothing but a suitcase and a degree, I was about to become the owner of my father's precious company. But this was just the beginning. The real story would start when they opened that takeover notice and saw my name. The look on their faces would be priceless. The morning the takeover notice was delivered to Morgan Industries, I watched the security feed from my office. The courier handed the envelope to my father's assistant, who immediately carried it into the executive suite. My heart pounded as I observed my father open it, his expression changing from confusion to shock to pure rage. Through the camera feed, I saw him grab his phone, hands shaking. Seconds later, my private line rang. "What is the meaning of this?" His voice trembled with barely contained fury. "Hello, Dad," I said calmly. "I see you received the notice. Phoenix Analytics. You're behind Phoenix Analytics." The disbelief in his voice was almost comical. "Founder and CEO," I confirmed. "Would you like to discuss the terms of the takeover in person?" Silence filled the line. "Then, be here in an hour." "No," I replied firmly. "My office, 2 p.m. Bring Mom and Marcus. They should hear this too." Before he could protest, I added, "Unless you prefer, I proceed with an immediate hostile takeover." I hung up, savoring the moment. 10 years ago, he'd thrown me out of this house. Today, he would come to my office on my terms. At exactly 2 p.m., my assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Your family is here, Ms. Morgan. Send them in." The door opened and they filed in. My father first, then my mother, and finally Marcus. They looked older, worn down by years of watching their company decline. My mother's perfectly maintained appearance couldn't hide the stress lines around her eyes. Marcus had lost his smirk, replaced by a look of barely concealed panic. "Please sit." I gestured to the chairs facing my desk. The floor-to-ceiling windows behind me offered a spectacular view of the city, a deliberate power play. "How dare you?" my father began, but I cut him off. "How dare I what, Dad? Build a successful company? Develop technology that revolutionized the industry? Or is it that I dare to buy up the company that was supposed to be my inheritance before you threw me away?" My mother's face tightened. "We didn't throw you away. You chose to leave." "Really?" I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Their own voices filled the room. "Get out. You're a failure." The words echoed off the walls of my corner office. "I keep this as a reminder," I said quietly. "Every time I doubted myself, every time I wanted to give up, I played this recording. It drove me to build something better than Morgan Industries could ever be." Marcus leaned forward. "This is ridiculous. You can't just take over our company." I smiled, sliding a tablet across the desk. "Actually, I can. Your company's stock has dropped 68% in the past year. You've lost market share to competitors with superior technology. Your board of directors has already approved the takeover. They know it's the only way to save the company from complete collapse." My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. "We don't need saving, especially not from you. Your quarterly reports say otherwise." I pulled up a holographic display showing their financial decline. "Your AI systems are outdated. Your analytics are years behind the competition. The only reason you haven't gone bankrupt is because of your existing contracts, which are expiring soon." I stood up, walking to the window. "Phoenix Analytics has developed technology that could transform Morgan Industries. We could save thousands of jobs, restore the company's reputation, and make it a market leader again. And what do you want in return?" my mother asked, her voice sharp. I turned back to face them. "Nothing. I don't want anything from you. This isn't about revenge, it's about business. Phoenix Analytics needs a stronger presence in your market sector, and Morgan Industries needs our technology to survive. It's that simple." "Simple?" My father stood up, his hands clenched into fists. "You destroy everything I built, and you call it simple?" "I'm saving everything you built," I corrected him. "The only thing being destroyed is your ego." Marcus jumped in, desperate. "What about me? I've been running operations for years." "Yes," I nodded. "I've reviewed your performance. Under your leadership, operational efficiency dropped by 40%. You'll be offered a severance package." The room fell silent. Through the window, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the city skyline, the same city where, 10 years ago, I'd sat in a motel room planning my future. You have two options, I continued. Accept the takeover or watch Morgan Industries collapse within the next 6 months. Your choice. My father slumped in his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 65 years. You really did it, didn't you? Built something bigger than Morgan Industries. Yes, I replied simply. I did exactly what you said I couldn't do. My mother's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. We were wrong, she whispered. We were so wrong about you. Yes, you were. I pressed a button on my desk, and my assistant entered with a stack of documents. The papers need to be signed today. Once they're complete, Morgan Industries will become a subsidiary of Phoenix Analytics. We'll begin implementing our new systems immediately. As they signed the papers, I remembered the young woman in a graduation gown, standing in a driveway with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. She had promised herself she would succeed, and she had kept that promise. My father paused before signing the final page. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I'm proud of you. Not because you beat me, but because you proved me wrong. I took the signed papers, my voice steady. I didn't do this to make you proud. I did it to make myself proud. After they left, I stood at my window watching the sun set over the city. My phone buzzed, a news alert. Phoenix Analytics acquires Morgan Industries in surprise takeover. Below was a photo of my father leaving my building looking defeated. I closed the alert and opened my personal email. There was a message from 10 years ago, archived but never deleted. The last email I'd sent to my parents before being kicked out. I will build something greater than you can imagine. Watch me. I smiled, closing the email. Promise kept. The next morning, I walked into Morgan Industries, now a Phoenix Analytics company, as its new owner. Employees whispered as I passed, finally understanding who had been behind their company's acquisition. I made my way to the executive suite, my heels clicking on the marble floors. My father's name was still on the door. I ran my fingers over the letters, remembering all the times I'd stood here as a child, dreaming of the day I'd follow in his footsteps. Life had taken me down a different path, but I had ended up here anyway. I pulled the nameplate off the door and dropped it into a box. From my briefcase, I took out a new one. Olivia Morgan, CEO, Phoenix Analytics. As I hung it on the door, I felt a sense of completion. The circle had closed. The girl they had thrown out had returned as the woman who owned it all. Sometimes, being kicked out of your home is the push you need to build your own empire. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's success. I opened the door to my new office and stepped inside. Time to get to work.